I have been on a run of UFO-related content of late, so let's bring some balance back to the channel with a look at a few more cryptids. Ents are a race of tree beings found in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. They are not only from the wild imaginings of the writer, they are also found in folklore from around the world. Talking trees, or sentient tree-like humanoids, have been a part of many historic stories. The name Ent is derived from the Anglo-Saxon word for giant, and even to this day, tree-like beings are part of many cultures. Groot the Extraterrestrial, sentient tree-like creature who is a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, being the latest iteration, the character gifted to us by Marvel Studios. So could there be more to this idea of sentient trees? Are trees living, thinking beings? Let's take a look. Welcome to IF, videos on history, mystery, and the strange. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video again. Let's begin with a brief description of Ents. Tolkien paints them as guardian-like creatures tasked with caring for and protecting the ancient woods and forests of Middle-earth. Basically, a tree with human-like features that can walk and talk. Looking into the legends of these arboricultural beings, I came across tales from ancient pagan times. They held beliefs that protective spirits lived within trees. When you consider that trees move and make strange sounds in the wind, it's no wonder to think that the ancient people who lived close to nature would believe that trees could house their gods and spirits. Still to this day, when we want a little bit of luck, we knock on wood. So what about more modern times? Are these beings still protecting man and tree? I came across a Reddit post on paranormal, posted by Teacher Whatever. He tells of a story where he ran into what could be described as an Ent. Here's the story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was living in Houston with my parents, studying for the bar exam. I would get up every morning around 4 a.m. to go run about 5 miles before starting my long day of studying. By the time night rolled around, I was exhausted and had no trouble falling or staying asleep. My bedroom was on the first floor, which was just a single room next to the garage. The second floor is where the kitchen, dining room, and living room were, and the third floor is where the guest bedroom and my parents' room were located. My parents rarely came to my room because they knew I was either studying or sleeping. This particular night, all was normal. I finished studying, took a shower, and fell asleep to the sound of the Golden Girls on TV. I always set the timer on the TV so I could fall asleep whenever and not have to worry. Well, later that night, after dozing off, I was woken by the sound of something breathing heavily. It sounded like someone was struggling to breathe. It was as if they had smoke in their lungs and couldn't breathe. I knew immediately something was wrong. I didn't open my eyes because I didn't want whatever it was to know I was awake, and I was freaked out and didn't want to see what was there. I knew it wasn't either of my parents immediately. I could feel the heat from the breath on my mouth. I slowly and carefully opened my eyes the slightest amount, and what I saw will haunt me forever. I was wide awake by this time and could see this tall creature standing over me from my left. It was darker than the darkness of my room, and it was breathing into my mouth. When I got a good look at it, it was even more terrifying. It wasn't your normal everyday figure, although a black figure in your room at night isn't normal, period. It looked like it had tree branches growing out of it. It had branches coming out of its head and its arms. I can only explain it as looking like Groot from the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I hadn't seen that movie at that time, if the movie was even out yet. It wasn't until 4 years later I saw the movie and immediately thought of my experience. But Groot looks harmless. He's kind looking. Whatever was in my room wasn't kind looking, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I knew I couldn't just lay there and let it do whatever it wanted to do, so I tried to say a prayer. I closed my eyes and screamed out the Lord's Prayer, and immediately it was gone. I slept with the lights on all night of that week. To this day, I get freaked out when I wake up in the middle of the night, which is now very often. I often wonder about my experience and can't decide if I think it was a demon or maybe some sort of alien. I don't usually tell people about this story because they don't believe me, but I will go to my grave swearing it's the truth. This amazing story that many in the comments said is just the work of an overexcited imagination or a fiction created to entertain Reddit users. However, there may be an acorn of truth to these stories. Peter Wollheleben was a member of the German Forestry Agency and managed a community forest. He became disillusioned with practices like clear-cutting, chemical use, and mechanical harvesting, the idea of short-term profits coming before forest sustainability. He decided to change these practices and manage the forest in an eco-friendly way. Today, he manages the forest without using insecticides or heavy machinery, and the trees are harvested by hand and hauled out by horses. Under his watchful eye, the woodland has gone from a money-losing operation to a profitable one. Wollheleben also has some other ideas about trees and the forests, and they could put some real research into the idea of Ents. He says trees are sophisticated organisms that live in families, support their sick neighbors, and have the capacity to make decisions and fight off predators. Quoting the forester, he says, "When I began my life as a forester, I knew as much about the hidden life as trees as a butcher knows about animals." Peter Wollheleben points to the latest scientific research that presents a new picture of trees as highly sensitive and social beings. The traditional belief was that trees are in competition with each other for resources, sunlight, water, and space. They struggle against each other, growing ever taller or succumbing to the nearest competing tree. But we are now learning that individuals of a species are actually working together. They are cooperating with one another. This has to indicate some level of consciousness, even if it is of a type we don't commonly recognize. So, how exactly do trees cooperate with one another? Mother trees suckle their children. They feed the young trees just enough sugars produced by its own photosynthesis to keep it from dying. Trees in a forest of the same species are connected by the roots, which grow together like a network. Their root tips have highly sensitive, brain-like structures that can distinguish whether the root that it encounters in the soil is its own root, the root of another species, or the roots of its own species. If it encounters its own kind, I don't know if scientists yet know how this happens, but we have measured with radioactive marked sugar molecules that there is a flow from healthy trees to sick trees so that they will have an equal measure of food and energy available. If sick trees die, they fall, which opens gaps in the canopy. The climate becomes hotter and drier. The environment becomes worse for the trees that remain. In the forest I manage, students from Aachen University did a study that shows that the parts of the forest that grew naturally were 3 degrees centigrade cooler than those that are managed and disturbed by humans. The world is trying to limit warming from climate change to 2 degrees, but undisturbed forests can do even better than that. Forests create their own microclimates. When we thin forests, the temperature rises, the humidity goes down, evaporation increases, and all the trees begin to suffer. So trees have a stake in supporting one another to keep all members of the community healthy. Trees also exchange information. When one tree is attacked by insects, we can measure electrical signals that pass through the bark and into the roots, and from there into fungi networks in the soil that alert nearby trees of the danger. The trees pay for this service by supplying the fungi with sugars from their photosynthesis, and the fungi in turn protect their host trees from attacks by other dangerous species of fungi and contamination by heavy metals. Trees also send chemical signals through the air, when they are attacked by insects. Nearby trees receive these messages and have time to prepare their defenses. Scientists like Susan Simard, who teaches forestry at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, have labelled this amazing web of communication the Wood Wide Web. Could this web have at one time been global? Imagine a world before today's deforestation. Billions of interacting trees. Could ancient man have found a way to tap into this network? This then creating the stories we hear in folklore. What do you think? Are trees sentient beings? Could Ents be out there, hiding deep in the forests, woods and jungles of the world? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And before I give my customary sign off, I would like to say a big thank you to all subscribers, both old and new. The channel just passed 7,500 subscribers. That number is unbelievable to me. When I first started making these videos, I was amazed that anyone would want to watch. Now, I have a number that to me is quite mind-blowing. I promise to keep making ever more and ever better content. Again, thank you so much. And as always, if you like what I do here on the channel, hit that red button, like and share. You can catch the latest by searching We Are If. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.